Motivation Show, and I guess it's only appropriate that this week we are doing it without Nancy here, although I think she's still on her way, so I'm pretty sure.
She's got to be coming.
She's got to be. I'm sure she just has some client things that have slowed her down. That has happened to me before, so I understand. But it's only appropriate since last week she had to run solo without me. How'd the show go?
It went good, really good.
Good. And then Tom Diller did my earlier show last week without me as well. And
we did miss you, though.
So now, but I know that I'm not needed.
It didn't feel the same in studio.
I may be missed, but not needed.
We spent about 3 or 4 minutes weeping prior to the show.
So I wanted to start out by talking about all the inappropriate things that Joe says before the show.
No, we don't. About nobody. I love everyone.
Oh, yes. All right. Hey, we're excited tonight, though, as we talk about money and those principles of financial security that Nancy wants this show to focus on. It's pretty appropriate that today we're going to get into a little bit of politics, because in the United States, money is tied to politics. Politics tied to money. In fact, running a business, one of the greatest expenses I have is taxes.
Absolutely.
Which drives a lot of the things that you'll hear me preach about tonight if Nancy doesn't get here to shut me up. But as a guest tonight, we've got Mike McCord, who is running for Pinal County Supervisor, District 2. I didn't write that down, but am I remembering right?
Correct, Santan Valley.
Santan Valley area. How big is District 2?
District 2 is probably the smallest of all of the districts. It covers pretty much just Santan Valley.
Is it both geographic and population, or just geographic?
It is geographically. We're the smallest population-wise. We're the largest with about 84,000.
Is that right? Is there seriously that many? See, I knew there was about 60 before. Has it really grown to 84,000?
It has really grown.
Holy moly.
I thought it was 83,939, but...
Well, who's counting?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We can split hairs, I guess.
That's a lot of people.
It is.
I don't think everybody realizes there's that many out here.
It is a big population.
You know, when I make fun of this show...
When you're at Walmart and Holiday, I'll tell you realize it.
Well, you know, driving out here, of course, and I spoke about this last hour with Tom Diller, that driving out here, people sometimes feel like it's like forever. Mm-hmm. And especially coming to here where the studio is, and then you get in here and you've got this beautiful studio. But considering that 84,000 live right here, we're not really way out here to those 84,000.
Right.
Holy moly. 84,000, really.
And you know what's funny about that? The last show, we didn't get a single person from Queen Creek or Santan Valley that called. They were all from out of the area.
Well, that's one of, you know, I said
mean,
this.
Mesa, Gilbert, Sierra Vista, Yuma, Tempe, Scottsdale. It was.
But those are who just joined us. I mean, that's one of the beauties. I tell people that I've been doing a talk show for many years, and they say, well, what station are you on? I said, well, I switched a couple of years ago to KQCK, and they said, well, where's that on the dial? And I said, well, it's in the internet. And I get this look like,
like, it's one of...
Yeah, one of those.
Gotcha.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you were a real talk show host.
Exactly. But interesting. Here's the interesting thing. Today I was listening to some talk radio on one of the traditional dial stations that I used to be on. And, you know, every couple of minutes you got commercials. I mean, you can't even listen to full sentences, it feels like, because you got these...
It makes it difficult to watch the show.
I mean, let's think about it.
To the show.
Glenn Beck. Everybody knows Glenn Beck. Why would Glenn Beck drop out of the national FM scene, syndicated everywhere, to have his own internet talk show? He spent $2 million on a studio to have an internet talk show. My father subscribes to his feed, and he watches his show just like this. Same thing.
And I don't know what it would
So
cost.
did Rush Limbaugh. They're all doing it now.
Yeah,
I have created a trend.
You are a trendsetter.
Thank you very much.
Well, actually, it wasn't you by yourself. I got to remind you that you had me as a talk
Oh, that's
show.
right. It was me and you both.
Exactly. And a few other talk show hosts with you that I won't mention them. Okay, we'll mention them. I mean, Brian Martin has done a lot of good things.
Yes, he has.
For this station.
Absolutely.
As well as, what's the name of your host that does the marijuana show with you?
That would be Vincent Palazzotto.
And he's done a lot.
A lot.
And
Brian Shank, the wrestling
guy.
Senior
wrestling guy. Is that what you call him? I thought, no.
Off the top rope.
But that's not what you call him.
The Shankster.
I thought you had to call him the senior...
Oh, he's our...
no, he's got a title now. He's not your wrestling guy now.
That's correct.
He's your senior media...
Entertainment media correspondent.
Exactly. So
he wanted a short title.
And you know, the title they gave me is That Guy. That's what they... Oh, That Guy is the title they gave me.
It used to be That Bald Guy. But we took the bald thing out.
Yeah.
Because you do have hair.
I do a little bit, if you want to call that hair. You talking about my ears or my head?
Well, your ears are great.
Yeah.
And your head, your head's fine, too.
But there are days I get more hair out of my ears than out of my hair, and I'm sure my listeners love that. And my wife probably just changed the channel. She had enough of That Guy, and she clicked, and she's going over to some other internet-based channel. So, Mike McCord.
Yes, sir.
Here you are minding your own business. I understand that you are the executive director of a charter school.
I am. I've been teaching the last 6 years. At the beginning of this school year, which was starting my 7th, the company that I work for promoted me to be the executive director for the corporation.
And so what inspired you to want to run for politics? You know, it is hard.
It is. I think Santan Valley needs a lot of growth. There needs to be more growth here. It needs to be more stabilized. And I think being in the government, if you're going to talk about it, you should put up or, stop talking about it.
Now, have you been in politics before?
I was involved in politics back east. I'm from Pennsylvania.
Oh, man, you moved from the green, beautiful Pennsylvania to this?
I did. Well, my wife and I came out here and fell in love with it out here, and like I said, 7 years ago. I was involved as a PC there, precinct committee man.
Yeah, precinct committee.
When I was in college, the college that I attended, Edinburgh, we didn't have a Young Republicans Club, so myself and one of my friends that I worked with as a paramedic back there, we were both going to college at the same time, and we started a Young Republicans Club at the college. Which was interesting because going against the Young Democrats and the Young Socialist clubs that were already well established at a liberal arts university.
Oh, yeah.
We were quite the controversy.
Oh, I'm sure. And, don't even get me started on socialism. Well, we'll hit socialism, and you'll get me started because it's hard to get me away from
I'd never even heard of a precinct committeeman until you mentioned it.
You know, most people haven't. It's very odd. But that's really where the rubber meets the road.
I'm meeting them everywhere now.
Everywhere.
Everyone I know is a precinct committee member now.
Oh, that's not true. In our precinct, I think I believe there's 9 openings, and you run for it. It's actually an elected office.
It is.
I mean, look at this room. 66% of the people in this room have been precinct members. What?
And I still am. I have now been I'm running for my 2nd term. But last time, not only was I precinct committee, but I decided to do some leadership inside the legislative district and ran for an office there as well as one of the chairmen. Oh, so have you done any of that kind of stuff?
I've never run. I've worked on a couple of campaigns for
some campaigns
for friends of mine that were running for like township supervisor, where I was from back in Erie.
So, deciding now to run. You're married?
I am.
And your wife supports this?
Absolutely.
Outstanding.
Absolutely. And she even supports it given the fact that we're expecting our first child
congratulations.
in a month from now.
Really?
Wow.
A month from today, we're going to have a baby girl, naming her Reagan Ann. So
good.
After my favorite president.
Reagan Ann.
Reagan Ann. Outstanding.
I just saw him in a Western a couple of nights ago. Great actor. Hey, really quick, what's your website so I can flash that up for people there?
www.electmike2012.com.
Hey, if anybody has questions, I had to memorize this number. I've been on Joe's show now has it been 2 years? Have we hit the 2-year mark?
At least.
You think it's been at least?
I think it's been a long time.
Has it? I had to memorize this number. All right, I tell you what, I dedicate myself to. By next week, I'll have this number memorized. What is it? You're going to call in.
480-745-1033.
Wouldn't that be cool if I actually got that memorized by?
Be really, really
cool.
But
I've got to tell you, at the other show, I won't mention the call letters of where I was for a long time. They had it up on the walls. All I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I have it right there.
Where?
Right there.
Oh my eyes! I'm 52 years old.
I'll have a special sticker ready for you for the next show. Trust me.
I'll memorize it. And I can put it on the wall for me.
See, there we go.
There you go. There it is, right up there. Those who are watching live, you can click a button on your internet and see what we're going to be talking about right there.
And as soon as it comes up, you can listen to one of the radio ads that Joe did for me.
Nice.
And, I put it up on my website.
And I understand you've been on Joe's show before.
I have, when I announced that I was going to be running.
All right. So this is just your second time.
This is my second time.
This will be your funnest time, though. So here we go.
Nice shot, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Done by a local photographer.
Oh, go ahead and play him.
Hey, by the way, I have to. Yeah, who was it?
Winona Brown.
There you go.
I like Winona.
Yeah, let's
She's
plug
really
our
good.
locals, man.
Absolutely, Winona, signing Arizona, right?
Yeah.
By the way, really quick before I forget to tell you this, I did my first music on hold for a company here. What do you think?
I don't know what you're talking about. Music on hold for a company. What are you
when
talking
they
about?
call? Actually, I can't lie. My wife did it. It was her voice, but when they call the company, Right Away Disposal, they hear Marie.
Oh,
She
really?
does when they put them on hold. Marie comes in.
Oh, that's good.
That's really cool.
That's good. That's very good. For Right Away Disposal.
Right Away Disposal, the greatest place to have your trash taken care of in Pinal County. or
Well, stay away
Maricopa.
from all my comments there, and we'll turn again to Mike McCord, running for Pinal County Supervisor. What are you hoping to change?
I think one of the biggest things out here, because my background is education, to get businesses and stuff into Pinal County, we have to improve our education system.
Well, that's a great statement. How do you do that?
How do we do that? We do that in several ways. We need to get more parent involvement. We need to probably move away from, and this, at a county level, this isn't obviously not going to be part of my responsibility, but we need to engage the community. We need to bring in people like yourself and Joe, people that have accomplished things and been successful in life, to show the students that dropping out in 9th grade or 10th grade is not the solution to a long-term fix.
But what influence as a county supervisor will you have on that?
Well, directly, none. But I think, going to the school boards, showing them that I'm interested in helping out, lending a hand, giving my advice, us collectively working together would be a great way to go about starting that conversation as to how do we draw people into wanting to take part in that.
What do you think the greatest challenges we have with schools in Arizona?
The greatest thing. Well, most families are dual working families. When I grew up, it was a rural community in Pennsylvania. But every night I sat around the dinner table with my family and had dinner. That very rarely happens nowadays in most homes. Mom and dad are working. Children eat dinner on the go, and I think we need to kind of try to bring some of that back by having strong economic development out here. If you don't have to travel into Maricopa for your job, you can get home at a reasonable hour. You're not spending an hour and a half, 2 hours on the road commuting into Phoenix to have a job.
So what are you going to do to get it stronger with businesses out here?
Well, I think there's several things that have to happen. The first being we need to improve our infrastructure. The roads in Pinal County are meant for rural traffic.
Joe certainly is.
They're not meant. They're not meant for heavy commercial.
Can I be a witness to that tonight?
I want to first welcome.
All
By
right.
the way,
Thank you.
We did start the show by
I
saying
know.
the Nancy Fleming Money and Motivation show.
Didn't realize that I was actually going to be testimonial to your infrastructure issue. You can guess why I wasn't here.
Oh, why?
The lousy one-lane roads that don't let people get to work.
There you go.
Right.
No, there's somebody was backed up and the traffic just doesn't move. So and then one of the biggest reasons people don't move out here is because everybody knows there's one way in and one way out, and you know that the littlest thing goes wrong, you're just going to be stuck. And I've heard people say you're not moving out to, or Santan, Queen Creek, and who wants to move someplace where there's lots of traffic and no roads?
Now you did have a call come in, but 1 sec on that, and we'll get right to the caller. But on the roads issue, we have freeway coming through, though, right?
It's in the process of being talked about. The state has their policies and procedures as far as how they're going to move forward with it, but it's looking like it'll probably come off like the end of the 60 and head out down through state trust land and out to the 10.
Yeah, I think they've got the first leg of it planned. So I just got something in the mail because I live by where the first leg will come off the 202.
It's going to go east-west or north-south?
I think it's going to end up going north-south.
Oh, okay, that would be good.
Hey, who do we got as
I don't know if this is a relative or a friend or somebody who knows you, but Sophie from U of A, and then a bunch of girls screamed, "We love Mike McCord."
I have no idea.
from U of A?
From U of A, so.
Maybe they drive out here a lot.
Did you hear him right? Did they say Mike McCord or Mark Windsor? Did you hear him right?
I think they said Mark Windsor.
I thought they said Joe Carreiro, actually, but
That doesn't even
Really?
sound
That's-
like that.
They need
know,
to call back and clarify.
I have hearing problems.
Yes.
But no, I'm pretty sure they said Mike McCord.
All right, I should give a dinner away to the first group that calls and yells that they love Mark Windsor.
They have to do it on the air. Yeah, right.
Yeah, they have to do it on the air.
And identify themselves.
And we need your personal address as well.
Correct. Want to corroborate
Some
it.
people will do whatever they can for a dinner, is for sure. One of the great challenges that we face at times in business is taxes everywhere we move.
Absolutely.
I've got a little office for my law office in Tucson. I got some flipping thing in the mail of some extra tax I've got to figure out that I didn't even know about.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere I turn, I'm getting taxed to death.
I completely understand that. Like we were talking about before, I'm the executive director for a charter school, so I oversee our school's $2 million budget. Well, a good chunk of that goes to salaries of employees, but on top of that, you end up having to pay the taxes, payroll taxes. We pay taxes on our building because we're a charter Unlike a public school that doesn't end up having to pay those taxes, we do. So, I completely understand the pains and pangs of taxes on a small business.
Now, Mike, let me ask you this. Do you balance that $2 million budget every year?
Every year.
Every year you balance it?
Every year.
You're not out looking for grants? You're not raising your tuition every year?
Well, here's the thing. Charter schools are tuition-free public schools.
Mm-hmm.
So we get our money from student enrollment, and we get X amount of dollars from the state per pupil for the year to operate. If our enrollment goes up, it's based solely on enrollment. If our enrollment goes up, we get more money.
But what my point is, you're running for county supervisor. So would it be fair for everyone out there to assume that anyone that can balance a budget at your level ought to be able to do it at a higher level?
I would hope so. I think I bring something very unique to the table that none of the other candidates in District 2 bring, is that I have a master's degree in business, and I have a background in finance. So I think, having that understanding of how to read balance sheets, how to write business plans, how to manage people will make a difference. I know how to surround myself with good people. I couldn't do it at the school. I don't do it alone. I have a business manager that takes care of a good deal of our, day-to-day finances stuff. He and I are in constant communication. But he is responsible for making sure our accounting at the end of every month is correct. He presents it to our board of directors, which I sit on. And he does a phenomenal job.
Well, did you already cover what a supervisor does? Because I'm not real sure what a county supervisor does or what they're in charge of. So is that a fair question? I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are like me that follow, my mayor and my representative in the state and the federal. And the county supervisors just sort of escape me unless they, get trapped in the news for doing something wrong. So, what do they do? Because I know there's lots of listeners not in this area, but what does a supervisor do first, so we would know what kind of person would?
Well, you're in essence the chief executive officer for the county. You are the executive branch.
Okay, as opposed to the mayor being for the city.
Right.
So
you oversee. You oversee, roads. You oversee all the departments that make up Pinal County. The sheriff's department. Granted, has a sheriff, but overarching over all of that are the supervisors, and ultimately are responsible for running the county and being, fiscally responsible with our taxpayers' dollars.
Well, I'm guessing because your county is like it is. I'm in Maricopa County, which maybe that's why I don't notice the supervisors. It's such a huge county.
Right.
They seem to be more for Phoenix, than for where I am.
I'd never even heard of a county supervisor when I lived in Maricopa County.
You only when they get in the news for doing something bad. That's the only time I get wind of them.
I didn't know they did anything good.
I think one of the reasons that out here you hear about it more is the fact that a large chunk of Pinal County is unincorporated.
Right, and that would be for a lot of areas. If areas that are huge, metropolitan areas like the Phoenix area, it's probably all entrenched. But you're saying is in areas like this that are more unincorporated, county supervisors have a chance to make a difference.
Absolutely. In Santan Valley, District Number 2, there's no mayor. We're unincorporated. There's no mayor. There's no city council. There's no public police department. There's no public fire department. Mm-hmm. So it falls onto the county to make sure those services are provided through, the Pinal County Sheriffs. Rural Metro is the fire department out here. Mm-hmm. Those things are provided or established through the county government.
I see.
So what's your position on Santan becoming its own city?
I think it needs to incorporate. I don't think right now is the right time to do it.
Why?
With the economy being as poor as it is, adding another tax on top of the current tax base, I think will drive people out of their homes. I think you'll end up hurting people quicker than you will help them.
So every time you have an entity, you're just putting in another layer of expense on the population.
Right. A lot of the teachers that I end up working with, I think you tend to hire in your own image. So I end up with some conservative teachers, and I was having a conversation with one that's finishing her master's in public administration. In 1970, there was 17 layers of government. As of 2010, there's 37.
Where?
Throughout the entire federal, state infrastructure
Here?
of government, throughout the country.
Oh, my word.
We've grown that much by putting titles in and people into positions and just growing government.
So is it too entrenched?
I think on some levels. I think at the local level is where you can make the most difference.
Yeah, that's probably
You know,
true.
at the federal level, unless you're the president or in the legislature and willing to fight to reduce those things, it's probably not going to happen.
You think you have a chance at the level you're working at. What made you decide you want to do this? I mean, you obviously like what you do at your school. Why would you want to do this?
I actually had a desire to put in a business out here, and the climate was so not friendly to wanting to put a business in. The retail space, the cost was very prohibitive, most of which was in what they call triple net, which is the taxes on the property. Most of the realtors were charging an exorbitant amount of triple net because they had to cover the taxes on the building. And most of the buildings are sitting empty. So, one or two tenants are carrying the burden for the entire strip mall that may have, 10 or 12 slots in it.
So that's what awakened you to see there was a problem.
Right.
So that's a big stress. A lot of us see a problem. Mark and I see all kinds of problems for small business owners, but that doesn't make us run for office. So what motivated you to want to run for office? It's expensive. It's time consuming.
I think a desire to want to help the community. I've always, back east, I was a paramedic for 10 years. I've always been in the mindset of kind of a servant leader. I think that's important to care about the people around you and want to help out. And I think I'm in a position where I can do that.
Okay, so what made you be like that? What kind of created your values?
I think it has a lot to do with my family history. My grandfather came here from Greece.
From Greece. Oh,
From Greece.
Interesting.
I'm half Greek on my mother's side. He came here with no money in his pocket, with a desire to want to be an American. He came during World War I. And
did he come through Ellis Island?
He did.
I visited Ellis Island.
Both he and my
that
great-grandmother.
That place has any of you been to Ellis Island?
It's amazing.
It has the most. Anybody out there been to Ellis Island? When I walked on Ellis Island, it was almost sacred. You could just feel the people. You could feel their hopes. You could just. It was incredible. It's
I actually have the
best
log
place I
sheet.
visited.
The log sheet that they signed when they came through Ellis Island.
cool.
I have a copy of it.
I hear there's some beautiful pelicans out there.
I'm sure there are. We just got a call in as well. Why don't
Yes,
we handle it?
and this is from Randy in Santan Valley, who was
A
very
local-
passionate.
By the way, we got a local call. That's cool.
Yes. Will you continue the radio show if you win? And a second question, will you allow this crazy feuding and division we have here? We hate it.
Yes, I would continue the radio show. I think it's important for public servants to put themselves out for the community to be able to have access to them. The feuding, yeah, I've never had a conversation with. I know what he's talking about with Mr. Johnson. I've never had a conversation with him. I would look to try to improve the relationship between him. He is one of the largest companies in Santan Valley. That's not saying that he and I may agree on every issue, but I think he needs to be included at least partially in the conversation. Where that conversation will go, I have no idea.
Well, I'm still on the radio show thing. So you're going to do your own weekly radio show? Is that the deal?
If Joe would have me.
Well,
Yeah, absolutely. I will extend this to whoever wins, supervisor.
I think
so
you're
I'm
right.
out.
You-
Joe's just going to announce me. There happens to be an open
You're out.
slot.
There is. No, I agree with you. I think people do need access to their elected leaders in a format that's this informal. Trying to get to a town meeting and
Right.
or hearing about it in times you can adjust your schedule. That's
Well,
difficult.
I mean, Santan Valley is unique in that our average age is 28 years old. So, I mean, you're talking young families.
Really?
Really.
See, I didn't even know that. Of course, I'm in Queen Creek, not Santan Valley.
Right.
So I was not aware of that. I am aware of some of the feuds. I don't know the details, but
Yeah.
it doesn't take long to go to a few of those little meetings and you find out, holy cow.
Right.
but I guess because it's close knit, you're going to get more feuds in a more
No,
close knit.
but it's not
No?
as much. I just found out tonight, I thought there was 60,000, and 60,000 is a lot of people. There's 85,000 people. I promise you, most of those have no idea about the feud. I'll bet if you took a survey and just walked down a normal subdivision street and knocked on 20 doors, 19 of those would have no idea what you're talking
Should
about.
we tell them about the feud?
Which one? There's several. There's
Which one's the
Chambers
most
of Commerce.
interesting?
Well,
The family feud.
The family.
Yes.
here's where I'm going to come from on that. Is I think it's a new era. There's a new supervisor coming in, and discussing what's happened in the past that was wrong doesn't really solve the issue.
What a great
I think we kind of
answer.
need to look. We need to look towards the future.
Peace-loving politician. Well, I guess we shouldn't insult you and call you a politician.
So
Yes, should
is
we?
District 2 a newer district? they rearranged things? Because I know we had
Right.
that one guy on that was
District
planning-
2 used to be, it used to cover Gold Canyon and
Apache
Apache Junction.
So it is a relatively
Four
new
places,
It's a new district
right?
boundary-wise,
Right.
right? And so is there not an incumbent? See, I don't know this because I deal mostly with the state side politics, the state level.
I guess the answer would be no.
There's going to be somebody sitting in when Brian Martin resigns here
Right.
shortly.
But that's
So
still
it's Brian Martin's district.
right.
Correct.
But he still represents the old District 2, which is AJ and Gold Canyon, as well as
All
Santan
right.
Valley.
And I think you did mention
So-
that Brian Martin is not running
Correct.
again.
Brian Martin has gotten a new job as the director of the Arizona State Parks, and he is resigning from supervisor, and they are going to bring in a temporary person to replace him until somebody is elected.
I did not know that. See,
Which congratulations to Brian for
See, I watched.
Absolutely.
kudos to him for accomplishing such a great thing.
That's a nice job there.
It is.
We did have a call, Peg, she said she's from Florence and Santan Valley. Are you a supporter of Curis? And if you are, what will you do to help them?
Well, I think Curious is a very interesting topic because the way the land lays out there, and I don't think everybody understands this, which is part of it lays on Florence city land, and the other half lies in state trust land. The part that lays in state trust land is a state issue. The county has very little to do with it, in all actuality. We can voice our opinion as to whether we like it or dislike it, but the truth of the matter is the county supervisors have almost nothing to do with it. I mean, we as representatives for the people can voice the opinions of the citizens, which seem to me, from speaking with people, is about split. Some people are very for it. I would recommend. I mean, I know they've had some a shutdown, or I'm not sure if they're back up yet or not. But I would recommend that if once they're up and running, to call them and to tour the mine site. I toured it.
It's very educational, too.
It is.
You will definitely get your questions answered. I've toured it as well.
We were going to do a tour live. Right? We were going to take our.
And then you never showed, and I did it. But that's cool.
I don't remember getting the invitation, so
I think I got lost in the mail.
So to answer the question, I am for economic development. If the copper mine it could be part of that equation. I'm not sure yet. I'm not 100% sold on the water quality. I'm still learning about it myself. I'm somebody that does research and tries to find out things for themselves before I make a decision. That's one of the reasons that I went down and toured it like a couple days before it ended up getting shut down by Florence. So I completely believe that to be an informed citizen, you need to get out there and find out the facts for yourself.
There's no way the state ever gives their land over to the county if there's a good reason or a project going on.
Well, they could. I mean, like the highway that's going to go in. I mean, that's going to be obviously through some of it's going to be through state trust land, and could ultimately be, if there's an issue on that stretch of road, that the sheriffs could end up going onto that road. But as far as turning it over, it's usually done through auction. State trust land is usually auctioned off to developers. So that's how that gets dealt with.
That's interesting.
So
even if you had a great idea, you'd have to have a developer to buy the land first, because the county couldn't just take it and do it the way they wanted it to.
not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I mean, there may be a process. I'm not versed on whether that's the case or not.
Are you? Do you have any plans for planting a lot more trees to help oxygenate Santan Valley a little bit better? That's from me.
That's from you.
I could tell that.
The problem with that would be the water to keep them alive.
Ah, gotcha.
Water is a commodity out here.
So what? Again, back to Nancy's question about the role of county supervisor, and then we certainly understand there's not mayors and all of those things. But issue-wise, talk to us more about other issues that you feel are important that you'll be addressing if you're elected.
Well, boy, we've touched on quite a few of them. Incorporation, obviously, is an issue. The Curious Copper Mine is an issue. I think improving, like I've said before, the economy of this area is what needs to be improved. When people have well-paying jobs that with sustainable incomes, primary incomes coming in, divorce rates tend to decrease, because the number one reason people get divorced is because of money. So if there's good jobs, opportunities for adults and kids coming out of school, I think will help to stave off kind of maybe the brain drain of people wanting to leave. The other issue that I have, and you mentioned taxes, I truly dislike the fact that every time I want to go buy a pair of dress slacks or anything like that, I have one option, which is Walmart. I have to go into Maricopa if I want to go to another store. If I want to go to Penny's or any other store, I'm having to drive into Maricopa, unless I want to go south to Casa Grande. That really bothers me, that my money has to trickle out of Pinal County.
So what are you going to? How do you fix that problem as a county supervisor?
How do you? Well, you make the environment friendly for businesses to want to come in.
What do you think that would take? Now, you talked about the triple net, but I think that's pretty common.
Yeah, that's throughout the state.
Well, it's kind of all encompassing. If you get a light manufacturing company to come in here, and there's obviously the people. If you have the businesses through light manufacturing, even heavy manufacturing in Pinal County, places like Harkins Theater and J.C. Penney's, they're going to want to go where the population is. They're going to want to go where the money is, because that's how they survive, and that's what's going to bring them in. It's kind of a, it has to be a strategic plan of many different things. It's not one, I guess, silver bullet that's going to fix the problem.
What's your name?
So it's very complicated. So the way you're
I think
describing
so.
your role in this, at least in Pinal County, is that it's a very, very complicated problem, because you have
It
a lot
is.
of unincorporated areas, but yet you've got, I know, there's lots of people in Apache Junction and Gold Canyon. I go to Gold Canyon and Apache Junction regularly, and I haven't thought about that, but you're right. There is no place to shop.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you have a substantial amount of every dollar trickling into Pinal County, that's great for trickling into Maricopa. That's great for Maricopa. That doesn't help us out here.
We had another caller.
Yes,
come.
Sue M. from Santan Valley wants to know if your family life will prohibit you from traveling or doing what it takes to meet large companies to try to persuade them into coming into Santan Valley, since she said that's part of the job of a Pinal County supervisor, which I'm not in tune with that. But
Well, without leading him on, I was hoping you'd get into that, because I do believe that's part. I believe that part of the job of a county supervisor is to sell the county to other companies and get them interested in the county. You become a salesman and going there, and so that's a great question.
and I believe that's why sand out here was created.
Right. Which I sit on the board for Superstition Area Networking.
Is that
Oh,
like
right
a
on.
chamber? You don't have because I know there's Chamber of Commerces that do a lot of that too.
We
but
actually
you don't
have
one?
two chambers of commerce in Sand. Sand's mission is more to try to help establish businesses, give them a resource, kind of similar to a chamber.
Okay.
So back to the question. I thought that was a
Okay.
great question. If a person understands that a county supervisor, part of that job is to visit with the corporate heads of other companies to convince them
Right.
that this is the place to do business. You become a salesperson.
Right. Well,
So her question was very good. How do you do that?
I guess to answer her question, I guess given my situation, I have a very loving and understanding wife. Before I decided to take on this task, her and I talked about it at length. We have a good family support system out here. My brother and sister-in-law live out here, not too far from us. So we have a very strong family support system, which is great. So I don't think that it would end up being an issue. And yes, you do have to travel. I mean, kind of one of the interesting things is here in Pinal County, we have an economic development officer. But his department is woefully underfunded. He gets about $270,000 a year. Of that, about $50,000 of that goes to Cardiff, which is down in the Casa Grande area, to help them do economic development. Then you have they do the Copper Corridor. Also gets a chunk of that, as well as another development group. So that leaves his department with roughly about $100,000 a year to try to advertise his salary and to bring people in to show off Pinal County. That's woefully underfunded. The way to kind of fund his department without costing the taxpayers any more money is we can pull money off of the general fund. The interest raised off the general fund can go towards economic development. So it's money we're already collecting, it's money already sitting in the bank, and it doesn't cost anybody any more dollars out of their pocket.
But taking that money, there's going to be a lot of accountability, because if you're spending that money, whomever is watching you do that is going to say, or whoever is in charge of it, to say, where's the results, what businesses, what revenue has been generated.
Absolutely.
So how do you answer that?
Well, hopefully the proof would be in the pudding, right? You would see things growing and having people here. You need to let the community know what we're doing to make things happen. It's a good resource to have the newspapers out here, letting them know, running articles, explaining what we want to do, and what we kind of talked about earlier, which is drawing the community into the conversation.
Without naming names, do you have any companies in mind that have expressed any interest? I realize you can't mention names, but have there been anybody out here looking around?
There actually has. I actually had a meeting last Friday with a company that's interested in moving out here.
Oh, that's
We had
great.
another call come in.
Marissa from Santan Valley wants to know, and being that I serve on the Santan Valley Regional Chamber, I'm not exactly sure what she was referring to, because I haven't seen too many lately, but she wants to know, will you handle the constant petty chamber issues that we have here?
So there have not been many of those lately?
But I haven't really seen many chamber issues lately.
Yeah, neither have I.
It's you got your choices. You go see what the best feel is for you, and you make your decision from there.
Yeah, I have to agree with Joe on that one. Would I handle it?
They were pretty bad for a while.
Yeah.
I won't deny that.
Would I mind being the mediator between it to try to make things better in Santan Valley? Not at all. If that's what it would take, would be getting the leadership of those two chambers together and having, and it may be a very difficult conversation to have, but would I be willing to mediate it and moderate it? Absolutely. I think that's part of being a leader.
So those problems have largely diffused? Is that what's happened?
I don't know if they've diffused. They're taking a siesta, I do believe. You just got to kind of get through that and just worry about what you're doing rather than what everyone else is doing, I think. And that's,
right.
Easier said than done, but I think that's what's got to be done.
Yeah, if you look at the purpose for a chamber, what's its real purpose? It's meant to be a resource for small businesses or businesses coming into the area to gather information to make their business grow and survive. And if both of them are able to do that in a way that's effective, great. If it means that one of them maybe needs to shut down and we only need to have one, then that's another conversation to have.
Is that something a supervisor can do?
No.
I didn't think so. Huh. Gotcha. Thank you, Marissa, for that question.
But, that's obviously part of the conversation with getting everybody around a table. You know, what's the best course of action for Santan Valley in Pinal County in general?
Well, do you come up with do county supervisors come up with, like, the equivalent of a business model?
Yeah, they do develop, strategic plans as to, when they plan communities, when they plan out where they want to see growth happen. Yes, those things do take place.
And you have meetings open to the public, like chamber meetings are open to the public.
Yeah.
You have meetings like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's planning and zoning meetings. The supervisors' meetings are, published and open to the public to come and speak. Absolutely.
Well, for people who haven't been to them or heard about them, how do they hear? Are they published in the paper, or how does that work?
They're basically every other week.
Okay. Just regularly calendared.
Regularly calendared meetings.
Mm-hmm.
How it works with one of them was not to be there for a meeting, like they were on vacation or something. I'm not exactly sure how that would all work, but they're regularly scheduled meetings. I know out here we have the Pinal County channel that always has them running on it.
And you can look at one of the 42 newspapers we have out here and one of the 77 radio stations.
Yeah.
They seem to be growing exponentially by the day. But everyone tries to. I know most of the newspapers and we try to post when the events are and
it's posted on the Pinal County website. So
what are county supervisors in Pinal County? What are they paid?
Right around $63,000.
All right.
I don't know the exact number. I guess I didn't get into it for the.
So you almost got a moonlight.
Is that in cash? But don't you get a car too?
Yes.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Do you get the same car that the old supervisor had, or do you get to go pick up another one?
I have no idea.
Because that,
But you know what? That's pretty far down on my
I
priority
can picture
list
you into some nice vehicles there. I'm only kidding, Mike.
Yeah, that's pretty far down on my priority list of worries, is what kind of car I'm going to be driving.
See, with Mary Kay, you get
This guy's a great guy. That was a great answer. I was trying to throw him a curveball there. But.
Now, and by the way, I don't know this. Do they get a retirement?
They do pay into Arizona State Retirement, yes.
So,
Well, I was going to say, is it full-time, or you're still going to be, do supervisors still keep their day job? And
No, this would be a full-time
It
position.
is full-time.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
whether it's required or not, I think to do the job justice, if the county and the taxpayers are going to pay somebody $60,000 a year to do a job, you should pretty much make that your job. I don't think you should be focusing on much else.
No moonlighting. He's not going to be moonlighting.
Well,
Joe.
supervisors, I think it's an 18-hour a day job from what I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I would, like I said, I sit on the school board for, or executive board for the charter school. That's a volunteer position.
Mm-hmm.
I would stay on that because I am interested in continuing to foster that school and see it grow. So.
Well, I imagine there'll be a lot of boards you'll be sitting on.
Yeah.
That's just one of many.
Just make sure none of them have nails in them.
I'll work on that.
all right. Joe, can't you ever convince these callers to get on live?
I can only ask them.
Our last show, Nancy, we had tons of calls. Tons of them.
Who was your guest?
CC San Diego with Chicano por la Casa. And we just had tons of calls in. Not one of them from Santan Valley, Queen Creek area.
Oh,
From
okay.
all over the place. And tonight, here, we've had probably 5, 6 calls, whatever.
They
all of them from
wanted to
Santan.
know if this was the Mark Winsor show. I said, no, this is the Money and Motivation show. Then why is Mark here?
Well, that's a good question,
Yay.
Nancy.
Mark the co-host.
Because Mark is the co-host.
The co-host with
Was
the
that
most.
Shelley?
Yeah, it might have been.
Yeah, that's my gorgeous wife calling saying, is this his show? Get him home. I don't even think she listens anymore. She's just too busy.
That was quite a, what do you call that?
Were they asking
A
that I get off?
testimonial? You don't think she listens anymore?
Oh, yes.
Thanks.
Well, she got a new calling. She's responsible
Oh,
for
that's
all
right.
the
That's
women
right.
in her congregation. Now, Relief Society president, so keeps her pretty busy. So were they suggesting that I sign off?
No, they were just curious, I think. They suggested that you sit in on all of our talk shows.
Oh, really? Yeah. You know, I was actually a guest. One of my funnest shows, which is interesting for a Mormon, one of my funnest shows was sitting on the marijuana show. That was a fun show. How come you've never invited me?
You know
back?
what? You looked good in the dreadlocks, too. I got to say.
You know, I'd enjoy it. We ought to do that one again sometime. Have me on there again.
Any time on a Thursday, Mark, you're always welcome to come on.
What time
in
is that show?
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
Matter of fact, Vincent is flying in this week.
Really? It'll be
I have
live?
to pick him up at 7 a.m. And I'm dreading that.
Oh, you would have made that sacrifice for
7
your dog.
a.m. I was actually going to call you and see if you might be able to stop by Sky Harbor and pick him up.
Remember, teaching seminary. I'm barely out at that
That's
time.
right.
So,
Well,
I don't know what that has to do with anything with the county supervisor.
But
But
I
it
was
a fun little
curious
side
too.
note.
I wanted to go back to Mike talk a little bit about his, your dad, grandfather.
Yeah, my great-grandfather.
Great grandfather who came over in World War I and
From Greece.
from Greece.
Which tells us why they're having a budgeting problem now. All the good budgeters left.
That's yes, very good point.
They
Yes.
left the socialists behind.
You know, he came to this country with a desire to make a better life for his family. And to become a citizen at that time because the war was going on, much like the DREAM Act nowadays, they could enlist into the Army, serve their country, and become citizens. And he went that route. After that, he owned several businesses in Pennsylvania, where I'm from. Raised 5 kids.
What kind of businesses did he have?
Initially, he had a candy store.
how fun.
And then when the the economy fell apart and the Great Depression and all of that happened, he ended up shutting that store down, and he and a friend of his ended up opening a store like a diner type store in Pennsylvania, and did that very successfully for many, many years.
So he came over here knowing he would have to fight. Did he go into the Army?
He did.
And did he go overseas?
He did. He the battalion that he served in escapes me right now. But yes, he served. He met several of the generals that led the war, which were some of his proudest moments.
I bet it would be, right. And so how long was he in the full 4 years then?
I'm not exactly sure.
Okay. But then he came back and
did.
was able to just get started, and he had to just,
Right.
he had no money.
Right.
So how did he start?
Through other family and friends, other Greeks in the community helped start him, which is very common for that era back then that the ethnicities in those particular groups, the city I lived in, there was a lot of Greeks, there was a lot of Italians, Germans. They all kind of helped each other, but became assimilated into the culture of the community and made it stronger and a better place to live.
And so he learned English.
He did.
But in the communities, I know not everybody was able to learn English, or the Greeks, and I'm sure the same as the Italian or the Polish or whatever group they were. I have a son-in-law whose parents are both Croatian, so his grandparents were in the Croatian area of Chicago.
Right.
So, yeah, they have all these parts. And some people never leave their little neighborhoods, which is interesting.
Right. I mean, they lived there, from when they got to they kind of moved from New York when they came through Ellis Island to Salamanca, New York, where he worked as a tanner in a hide, where they tan hides, and then that's when he was enlisted into the military, came back and lived in Bradford, Pennsylvania, for pretty much the remainder of his life.
Okay, and raised the 5 kids, so that's quite a nice
Right.
heritage. You come from a lot of hardworking people.
I do, and I think that's where I get a lot of my drive from. My personal, I guess, background is I have dyslexia, so I have a learning disability, and I think that's one of the reasons that makes me so passionate to deal with education. Is I have dyslexia. I understand what it's like to be a student that has struggles. But I've overcome them. I've learned to deal with them through great teachers that have helped and mentored me, through my family that's helped and mentored me. I think that's shaped who I am as a person.
I think it says a lot for determination.
Right. I mean, I can tell you when I graduated high school, I had no idea that I would end up being a paramedic, that I would have a bachelor's degree in public administration and a master's degree in business, and have been teaching for the last 7 years. I would have never thought that.
And what do you think motivated you to struggle like that, force yourself? And it had to be very frustrating.
I'm just a very driven person. I want to see good things happen, and I want to be an inspiration to other people.
Hearing stories like that is an inspiration. We always look at. I know when I hear stories, I think, well, I don't have dyslexia, so why am I not reading? Or
Right.
whatever it is that I
Right.
hear about. And whenever I hear about people achieving when they have had some adversity, I think it does make us stop and think. And but you have to be motivated with dyslexia. Is not an easy thing.
And kind of the funny thing now is I'm a very avid reader.
Really,
So
you really did get around
yeah,
it.
I mean, the teacher that helped me, her name was Dr. Mary Swartz. She's since passed away, but I'll tell you, I owe everything to her and my mother and father for pushing me out of the car every day to go to school and to work hard. At the time when you're kind of going through it, you don't think about that kind of stuff. But boy, looking back on what I've accomplished so far, I am blessed to have those people have been in my life.
There's a lot to be said for example, and you don't know it until years later. My daughter was giving a talk. I raised 5 children by myself, and all you know is how much you fail as a parent. At least that's how I felt. Single moms, I'm sure, will appreciate. And she gave this little talk, and she said something about how hard her mom worked and what her mom did and how her mom, kept learning. And I thought, wow, I didn't know that's what they were seeing at the time. All I saw were teenagers that were whining sometimes,
Right.
So, and that's probably how you felt. I'm sure you weren't always real happy when your parents pushed you out of the car and made you do these things.
Right. But now I'm pleased that they did that to me. I'm glad that they were that strict and stuck to their guns to make sure. And my brother is the same way. I mean, he owns his own business back in Pennsylvania that he recently started because, the big thing out there is shale, the natural gas.
Oh, we've heard a lot about the natural gas.
Right.
But there's enough natural gas in Pennsylvania. That's 100 or 150 years or something.
It's an amazing thing. But due to some of the regulations that our current president wants to put on them, it's kind of an up and down, business there. So knowing that most of these companies needed welders, he has a welding background and started his own business. I mean, that's very inspirational. I love the fact that he did that. So that's what America's all about.
So if I can go, it is, and that's what you go ahead and finish that sentence because it's just leading into.
Yeah, I think that's what America's all about is kind of ingenuity and if you can't do it one way, find another way to do it. It's nobody else's job to do it for you. Okay. You need to be the one pushing yourself forward.
And when we had talked earlier, you had a great. I even wrote it down, what you felt like the role of government was. So why don't you say that? Because I thought that was great.
As far as we were talking about economics and
Right, when we talk about economics, right.
I don't think it's the government's job to create jobs. I 100% believe that it is private industry and capitalism that creates jobs. It's the government's job to lower the regulations, get out of the way, and assist, but not necessarily assist by giving things away. Nowadays, we live in an era where it's very entitlement. You know, what is the government going to give to me to do this? Well, that's not the government's job. You need to get up and do it yourself. Take some initiative. You know,
right? Like on the news today. Okay, which, not to give an opinion one way or the other, but just basically that. What are we now going to do to subsidize the Coyotes now that they're winning?
The Coyotes.
The Coyotes?
That was on the. Well, he's saying we have this entitlement mentality.
Right, but somebody was actually
so
wanting
on
to
the
subsidize
news
them?
today, they're saying yes, it came out about their winning. You know, they're having this whole problem over in Glendale. So that was the question. I thought, what an interesting question. You have a team winning, and the first thought is they need an entitlement because they're winning. And I'm agreeing with what you're saying. And it looks like if I look at your background, you started with a history of an ancestor, your great-great-grandfather, who believed and worked hard. And so you have seen the fruits of government staying out of the way. Because the other side of the entitlement side is the government then being the enemy to its own citizens. The citizens who want to start a business, the citizens who want to hire and who can't because they're paying so much to the government. So rather than the government doing what you said, which is to foster an environment in which their citizens can prosper by their own efforts.
Absolutely.
We're seeing instead a government that is shackling your brother, for example, in Pennsylvania. Or you can even talk to the people who where the oil wells are. I mean, anywhere. You can go anywhere and find that going on.
We're talking
so
I mean, I think.
How do you do that at a supervisor's level, though? Because you still have the federal stuff, right?
Well, how do you do that? You make sure that the regulations for Pinal County are appropriate to bring in those businesses, right? You make sure that the taxes being levied against those businesses aren't so high that it's forbidding.
But you don't feel a need to give the businesses money. You're just going to foster an environment to where they can grow.
Absolutely. Here's an interesting kind of statistic. There's for every one business that wants to grow and expand in the United States, there's about 17,999 locations available throughout the country for them to move to.
So there's quite a bit of competition.
So on that 18,000th location, what are we going to do in Pinal County to make that enticing? What are we going to do to kind of level out the road to get them in here?
Now we'll talk about giving here in just a second. We got another call that came in with.
And actually, it's a very interesting one. This is one I find very fascinating, and this was inspired by you being from Pennsylvania. Sue Ann Cully is here visiting family, and is relocating with 42 others, and they're going to establish an Amish community here in Santan Valley and want to know if you will support them and help them.
That's a very interesting thing.
I hear they make some great stuff.
Well, he's pondering that. So
they make great stuff. They do make great stuff. Look what they've done to. Well, you're from Pennsylvania.
I am. Honestly, I'm from the northeastern part of the state. There wasn't a terribly huge Amish population. That's more kind of center middle of the state of Pennsylvania. Would I do something to help them? As far as trying to help them find land and those kind of things?
I don't know. That was generally what maybe they have a lot of problems. I mean, I don't know.
I guess I'd be interested and intrigued to, have more of a conversation with her about that. I'm not exactly sure how to, answer that question without having more details.
Can you give your contact information so maybe she can shoot you an email?
The website is, like I said, www.electmike2012.com. And my email address is electmike2012@gmail.com. So absolutely, please, go ahead and email me. I'd be very intrigued to kind of talk with you about that. I guess without more details, it's a kind of a tough question to answer.
Well, I think within the context that we were talking about, I think too. I know if it was me calling, it would be, are you going to do anything to make it difficult for us? In other words, do you not want us here? Or are you going to hedge up our
not
way?
At all.
If we look at that 40, because they're going to be a community and they're going to be a business because they're doing crafts and all of the wonderful.
Right.
I mean, I have something from Pennsylvania, the Amish man. I think practically all of us do. So that would be a different type of community, but they would definitely be wanting to make sure they would be welcomed.
Right. I mean, I guess that's the interesting thing is that we
Sue
are
and Cully.
we as the United States are the melting pot of the world. So all people are welcome if you come here in the right fashion.
Well,
That
and
sounds
the
like a
Amish
compound.
Well, the Amish have been there so long. I
Well, I
was
tell you.
actually often wondered when another group would have to break off and
Oh,
go
I'm sure they
somewhere
break
else.
off.
That's a
lot.
pretty decent-sized group.
That is.
That's 43 people.
Well, I tell you, Sue Ann Cully, give me a call as well. I'd love to. I love the Amish people.
And Mark can grow a heck of an Amish beard.
Okay.
Right, Mark? Come on.
Well, one of my favorite songs is that Amish song by. Now I forgot his name.
That famous Amish
it'll
guy.
come to me in a minute. No, he's a funny guy. He does funny songs.
George Carlin.
No, he's not funny. He's just
Talking
older.
about Weird
I don't
Al
know.
Yankovic.
Weird Al. It's Weird Al. See how smart
Is
Mike
Weird
is?
Al Amish?
No, but he has a funny Amish song. That's
Oh, an
wonderful.
Amish song. I was
But-
like, he
Well,
really
he
blew me
does.
away.
He does. But that's not why I love the Amish. The Amish are kind, wonderful people. I love the Amish.
I
So
love
kind.
the Amish, too.
They are just very kind. In a world where, you watch, anytime somebody's in the news because the family member's been murdered or injured, or, they always want the revenge.
Mm-hmm.
Get the revenge. And the Amish, I love that they just love and forgive and they're friendly. I love the Amish. So, yes, come to our community, please. Whatever it takes, I'll help you.
Well, you know what? We got
Yeah.
perfect
I-
roads for the wagons to
I
cruise
think-
around.
I got
Yeah,
two
I
extra
think-
bedrooms for you to be in
think-
while you look around.
I think Mark and I would both like to sit down and have that conversation to see what they would.
We could bring
Sure.
the whole troop of Amish in here.
Yeah,
We-
do an Amish night on the show.
They
We could
almo-
do an
They could
Amish
almost
show.
live here on Joe's land.
They could come in because of the money and motivation. What motivates them to live like they do?
know-
That's always fascinating
Joe,
me.
I haven't done a Sunday show for a while either. I ought to do a Sunday show with the Amish. They're just wonderful people.
We should bring in some if there's any Amish people out here now in Santan Valley besides
Oh, there is.
Sue and you know some Amish people
I
out
don't know
here?
them personally, but I'm a member of the Greater Phoenix
Amish Society?
No. Let me think here. You guys know that I can't. You see how hard it is to co-host with him? No, I'm kidding, Joe. There is a religious base. Let's see. It's the Greater Phoenix. Anyway, now I can't think of the name. Now you messed me up, but it's in my phone while we're thinking. But anyway, it's any religion. They're members of this
Non-denominational.
That's right. Well, all denominations join it, so you keep your denomination, but it's just an organization.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I just can't think of the name of
Isn't
it.
it called the Good Faith Non-Denominational Group or
I
something
can't
like
remember.
that?
It's big. It's huge. But anyway, there's Amish in that as well as most of the religions. Not.
I saw a big show on the Amish a couple of months ago. They're pretty
Yeah.
wild.
It'll come to me here in a second if I don't see it. But in any event, so yes, I'm familiar with them. There are some in the valley, in the Phoenix Valley anyway, already. But we would love to have some out
And we
in the
want you
Queen
to
Creek,
know,
Santan area.
any of you that are Amish planning on coming out here, Santan Valley has, even before the name, has always been very Amish friendly. Seriously. I mean, it just has been.
All right, I don't know.
Now,
why
you
I
can
think
take
you're
my
full
word
of-
for that.
All right.
That's very
I
good.
don't know why I feel like you're full of baloney.
I don't have any
We'll-
data to support that on paper,
No,
but
we'll just trust you on that one.
right.
Well, looking around, it seems like it would be because
Yeah.
it's agrarian and seems like people like to.
You can take
Live a
those
little more
wagons up and
naturally.
down the roads out here. It's
You
very
can.
rural, you know.
It's very good. The wagons would do probably just as well as the cars are doing, if not better.
Horse
But
poop
not
doesn't
all
bother
Amish
anyone out
are-
here.
Not all Amish are on wagons.
They
you
don't
guys.
drive cars, Mark, and they don't watch TV.
Not all of them.
Well, some do.
Well, they listen
All right,
to
well, I'll tell you
radio.
what. Now it's decided. We're going to have a Sunday edition Amish show. We're going to
my
answer
gosh.
all that stuff. So give us a call. Wasn't that fun? Hey, by the way, I don't know if anyone's watching the clock. Is that my job when I'm co-host?
Well,
It is.
It's because you're staring at it.
I was. I'm now staring at my phone trying to find the name of that faith-based
So
group.
you get to go ding ding ding.
Hey,
Right.
and by the way,
Well, when it
let
was-
me just shoot this out really quick to Sue Ann Cully. And if we go a minute over it, whatever, it's fine. You could go ahead and send any questions as well to info@sandtoday.com. And that would be the Superstition Area Network and
Interfaith.
Development
Right.
organization group. And they can assist you in things as well, helping you out.
It's the interfaith group.
That's right, interfaith.
There you go. Oh, I feel so much better now that I thought of it. These brain cramps. So our time is out. As
It is
co-host,
out.
I'll announce that. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you for having me.
A great guest. It's been very fun.
Very
Thank you those who called in.
informative.
We always
Thank you.
appreciate our callers. And Nancy, I'll let you wrap it up since it's your show, as that caller so eloquently pointed out.
Yes, well, we just like Mark, so we enjoy having him here. Anyway, this is the Money and Motivation Show with Joe and Mark and Nancy and our special guest, Mike, who is running for your county supervisor. We appreciate how articulate you are, and we appreciate how much you have studied and looked into some of the issues that are pressing in this particular area. And hopefully people who are not in the area will have a better understanding of their own supervisors and their own supervisors' responsibilities from having listened tonight.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Join us again next week. God bless.
All right, thanks, guys.
Are you experiencing computer problems? Is your computer running slow, bogged down with viruses and spyware? You need a reliable and knowledgeable, trustworthy computer service company. Contact Computers, Networks, and More, located in Santan Valley. Get your computer or laptop running in top condition by a certified technician with 20-plus years experience and beta tester from Microsoft. Computers, Networks, and More provides repairs and solutions to any computer-related issue, whether it's software, installation, troubleshooting, updates, or tune-ups. You can trust Computers, Networks, and More. Contact Jeff Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. to schedule an appointment. We can have you up and running quickly, usually within 48 hours. Located in Santan Valley. Computers, Networks, and More. We're here for you. Contact Jeff at 480-729-8899. That's 480-729-8899.